A while back ago, I recorded a video about how to use Webpack and how to configure it with loaders, plugins, and custom loaders and custom plugins, but we didn't speak about asset modules, and it's a very important part to know about in Webpack, and its usage is to import assets inside your JavaScript files. So maybe you would like to import images, icons, GIF files, text files, config files, custom files, WebAssembly, whatever you would like to be able to import. And the idea is that when you don't like, for example, you don't have loaders, you don't want to write like custom loaders for them, you would use the asset modules to import these files. And asset modules has three types. The first type is that you would like to just import the link for the files that you would like to use. This is the first type, and let's write it here. So the first type is to import the link. The second type is to import the whole file. The third type is to import the source of the file. So the difference is that the file is importing it as base 64 encoding. This one is importing the actual source of the file. So these are the three types that exist inside the assets modules. And in asset modules, they are just normal Webpack loaders, and they already are written as loaders when you are using them. So the first one to import the link of the file is called asset resource. You would be importing the link, and the file itself would be added inside the dist folder in Webpack, or the output folder that you eventually using. Inline would be importing the actual file itself coded as base64. And if you don't know base64, I will also add a link for it to be able to check it out. And the last one is to import the actual source of the file, and it's called asset source. So these are the three types that exist in asset module. And these exist in Webpack version 5. In Webpack version 4, there were other custom loaders to use. So with asset resource that imports the link, there was a file, not file loader, sorry. Yes, it was file loader. This was the one. Yeah, it has like a little bit of weird naming. So file loader was the one that imports the file. URL loader was the one that is importing it as inline, and the row loader was the one that importing them as source. Of course, like all of these notes will be like a link for them in the description. So these are the three types for assets. The last one, which is called asset, is just like an automatic configuration if you cannot decide between asset resource and asset inline. And let's go to the example for Webpack. And already I have a Webpack configuration, and it's just a simple configuration. It already uses an entry to import a file. It has an output to output the file, and empty rules for loaders, and plugins for HTML Webpack plugin to have like an index file for our file. And we have three images and one txt file, and we would like to use the asset loader or asset modules to import these files inside the index. And I'm not using any frameworks, just pure JavaScript, so it should work with any framework that you would like to use, or no framework at all. And we will just create an HTML element, or like a JavaScript that creates an HTML element, and then we would import or create images for each one of these images inside this container, and then attach this container to the document body element. So let's first create the app as a function, and let's attach the output of this function to the body. So we say document.body and dot append child, and we would like to add the output for the app. And let's go here up for the app, and what we would like to do is to create a container element, and we say document dot create element, and it's just an empty div, and we return the output of the container. And when we run it, npm run serve, and it's just Webpack serve. It's just like a normal watcher. And we'll go to localhost 880. We should see an empty page with nothing inside it. So let's check it, and console is empty. And let's import our first image, and what we would like to import is the JPG image. So let's create for it const, and we say this one is called image, and it's just an image that we would like to create. So we add this one, and we add an image, and we then append it to the container. We say this one, append the image to the container, and we define the different configuration for the image. So the first part is we would like to define the source, and the source would be code image URL. We are going to use the first one, which is asset resource for Webpack, and we take the code image URL. This is just the const from the import that we are going to use. So import code image URL from assets code.jpg. So when we write it, of course, we see an error because it says, okay, I don't understand what is this type of file. So we need to cancel Webpack and we'll go to the configuration. And what we would like to do is to add the first loader for the assets. So the first loader would be creating a loader to the GPG file. I'm just like going to copy paste it. So we add the test GPG file and type is asset resource. Just it. So in this case, what it's going to do is to import the URL, and the file itself would export it eventually when we build it. So let's run again npm run serve. And if we refresh, we now see our image appears. And if we check it inside the inspect, we see the URL only. And if I close this one and try to run the build process for Webpack, let's run the build. And now we see inside the disk, we see our JavaScript file and we see the GPG and eventually the HTML on its own. Okay, so this was the first type. Now the second type, which is importing the file itself inside the JavaScript, not just the link, but the whole JavaScript. So we will do it for the SVG file. So let's copy paste it here and we add the SVG, and instead of resource, we define inline. We go to the JavaScript, we copy and paste. Of course, we could create it as a function, but let's keep it like this. And we import the SVG file, and the SVG is called neoncat. So we say neoncat, and it's an SVG file, and neoncat. Neoncat. And we say maybe like base64 to say this is just the base64 for the file. And instead of the image source, we define the base64 here, and we just also name the image or the const variable. So copy, copy, copy. So now we have the other one for the neoncat, and what we are going to do is to just not build, but rather npm run serve to check it works. So if I refresh, now I see my lovely cat here. And if you check the source, you would see the whole file is imported, like 7.7 kilobyte, which of course like increases our file size significantly. And if you check the network, you would see that it's already like 64 kilobyte for the JavaScript, 7.7 of them, like about 10% of it is already just this image. So of course, like it doesn't make sense, but we will discuss like the usage for each one, like different types. So this is the second type, which is inline. The third type, which is source, and source would import the file as it is. So if I write like import, and we will going to import the data txt file. So let's say data txt, and assets, we say data txt. And if I console log it here, console.log data.txt, of course it doesn't know what this file is, so let's stop it and let's add the loader for this file. And with this one, because we don't want to use base64 because it's just like a simple text file, and we don't want to use the asset resource for the image, like keep the file away, but rather we would like to import the file as it is. We would like to show the content for data.txt file as it is inside our DOM element. So let's copy and we add this one, and we add configuration for it. We say for txt file, and instead of inline, we say we will do it for source. And if we run it again and we refresh, you check the console, you see the element itself or the content of the file already printed. So maybe we add it inside a pre-element. So let's copy and we say maybe it's a commands element, and we just copy and append to child. And this one, maybe we add the pre element. And instead of source for image, we use inner text, just for an example. Let's copy paste and save, refresh. So the element is just like a named incorrectly. Yeah, so let's save this one. Yes. Now we see the content as it is, like as if comment. Of course, you could style it and so on. And then in this case, you could separate your custom commands that you would like to show for the user, like in a separate file, and the actual visualization in another file, which could be give you an idea about using what's called like SSG, like server-side generation, for example, or even server-side random. But this one maybe like for server-side generation, like it could give ideas for doing it. Yeah. So these are the 3 types for each one. Let's discuss the custom configuration for each one inside Webpack, because each one has also useful configuration. So for asset resource that is importing the file link, there is a way to create a custom link for the files that you would like to generate. So let's copy paste it here. It's called generator file name. Of course, like I said, all of this stuff would be in a link in the description section to be able like to use it and so on. So I have generator file name, and then you could define the custom files that you would like to use. This is for asset resource. For the files that you are importing, maybe for the SVG file, instead of importing the actual SVG, maybe you would like to minify it. So you could add another loader for it, but it doesn't work because you are already using this loader to import the file. So you would like to add minification for it. So there is something called data URL under generator as well. All of them under generator, by the way. So there is generator data URL, and in this case you could import the content base64 and then minify them. So you could use a function to minify them, and the SVG to minify data URL is just another module or like another component or loader that you would import and then minify your SVG file. So you take the data, pass it to this function, and then return it. So in this case, the file size would be much smaller. So maybe also we could run it as well. So if we run it, let's check the effect of it. If we refresh, let's check the network. Yeah, we see a little bit of like it reduces the size of it a little, maybe. Okay. And the last one, of course, like this doesn't have anything. And if you would like to see a full list for the different configuration for the generator, you could see under Webpack rule.generator. So you would have like different stuff for these types. But we discussed like the most important parts. Maybe public paths would be also important to be able to define all the files related to a certain, like if you would like to put all real assets under a certain public path, you would put all of them in this path, and then you would be able to refer them using the load. But maybe this would be made like with another video. So let's discuss now the third type, which is the asset. And the asset part is just selecting automatically between resource and inline. So maybe you would like to say, okay, if the file size is less than 4 kilobytes, I would like to use as it inline. But maybe if it's more than 4 kilobytes, I would like to use it as resource and just like use the link for my files. So in this case, we could do it for the PNG file, and we do PNG, and we just change this one to asset. And this one would require the custom configuration for it to define when would be the size for it. So you don't rely on the default one. So we defined what's called parser, data URL condition, maximum size. And we just return the size you would like to use. So in our case, we say, okay, I would like to do it when it's 4 kilobyte. I would like to use the resource to just use the link. When it's more, use the link. So we run npm run serve. Oh yeah, I guess because I removed the configuration for the text file. So we just like copy. Let's roll back all of this. We added the text again. We add the PNG file, and let's save it. And let's rerun again. So npm run serve. And let's add the PNG image. So let's copy one of these images. And instead of this Nyan cat, we would import the Docker image. So let's copy, paste, and we say Docker PNG, and we say Docker image URL or base 64, depending on the size, just to make it clear for the demo for now. Of course, like you don't name it like this. And this would be the third one. So we say the source would be this Docker image, and let's rename the variable. So we say Docker image. Okay, now we save, we check, we refresh. Yes, we see the PNG image, but it's just like a little bit huge. So just like maybe we could change the width for it. So Docker image dot width equal maybe 200, just to make it small enough. And now we see our lovely Docker. Also, there is a Docker course, you could check it out. Okay, so now we edit it and we check it. We see we import it as a file. But if we stop and maybe we say, okay, we would like to use a big size just to see it as inline. So we change it and we run it, npm run serve, and we check again. Now we see it's using base 64. And for the use case for each one of them is that you will always be using asset resource. This is the main ones that you are going to use to import images, files for GIF files or PNG or font files or movies or any type of files that you only want the link for it, which is a big asset that you would like to show. So this would be the main one you are always using. Asset inline, it's a little bit extreme to be using it, but maybe for example you would like to import like icons or very small icons or logo, for example, which is only in SVG. Never import logo with JPG or PNG, but rather with SVG, or like it would be have like very extreme cases to be using it. Asset source, this is when you are trying to import file which is not JSON, and like we saw, like it's a TXT file or a page file, I don't know, like something that it is not JSON or JavaScript and doesn't have loaders already for them. So in this case you would be using asset source. Asset only, it would be used when you don't know like which one you would be selecting, like asset resource or asset inline. But other than this, yeah, you would be always using asset resource. Like we said, asset inline would be extreme case. Asset source is when you don't have JSON file. Yeah, so this is like the use case for each one, and I hope this video was useful to you. And if you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section, and see you in the next video. Ciao.